Prep Rally Podcast, the only podcast in the state dedicated to prep sports. Brought to you by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Here's your host, Chip Souza.
And welcome to the Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 edition of Prep Rally, the podcast. I'm Chip Souza, joined by Henry Apple to my left playing third base and Ricky Fires to my right playing first base or left out, whichever one. He'd be about the same at either position. Silence.
Silence.
When it's true, it's true.
Oh, is it time for me to go in, Coach? Somebody get hurt?
When it's true, it's true. So we're going to talk a little baseball, softball, soccer, track, basketball, AAA. We got a lot of stuff going on today. We're going to start and we're going to touch on 6A West baseball. Henry, you saw a couple of really good games this week.
1-0 games.
Man, those are fantastic.
Now, I posted this on Twitter, and I will share this today. You know, if I've got nothing else better to do than just sit and munch on popcorn, wash it down with a cold drink, yes, I'll take an 18-14 game.
Baseball?
In baseball.
Okay.
As a fan.
Okay.
But you want me to be a sports writer?
Yes.
I love 1-0 games.
1-0. How long did it take, Henry?
About an hour and 45 minutes.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's what I cheer for, Ricky. I cheer for the clock, baby. Cheer for that clock.
I'm the same way, man. Even now, I'm on the opposite end of soccer. I can't do a 0-0. I got to have a 3-2, 4-2, even a 3-3 like I had last
night. How about
night.
8-0?
I could do that.
We had an 8-0 last night.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Bentonville girls.
Girls.
Yeah.
So they pounded a lot of people.
So, Henry, 6A West baseball, right now, it looks like a two-team race. Rogers and Harbor both at 8-2, and then there is a logjam of teams 3 games back at 5-5.
Yeah, you have Fayetteville at 5-5, Bentonville at 5-5, Heritage at 5-5. We're going to have, we've got a lot of ties, and we're fixing to have some tiebreakers if something doesn't take place in the next couple of weeks or so.
We're going to be playing a lot of rock, paper, scissors. That's what we're going to do.
Going back to last night's game, my goodness, I've been covering games since 1986. That may have been the best defensive game I've ever witnessed.
I know I was following you on Twitter, and you said Aaron Arnold at West was turning in web gym after web gym over at third base, which he hadn't been playing a lot of third base this year.
No.
He did not last year. Nobody played last year, but the year before he played a little third base, I believe. I know Coach. I talked with Chip Durham, and he said that they were not going to try to use him at third base much because of his pitching arm, but they had to do what they had to do.
Well, now that they've switched him sort of to a relief role.
Coming out of the pen
bullpen,
now.
So now they can play more third. And, I mean, he turned a double play. He took a ground ball at third and threw the guy at home. My favorite play, Harbor is threatening in the fourth inning, second and third, 2 outs. They hit a hot shot into the hole between short and third.
The 5.5 hole.
Yeah. He dives, grabs the ball, rolls over, and from his backside throws the runner out with a step to go. I mean to tell you, that's a defensive gem.
Ricky spends a lot of time on his backside, but he can't throw the ball home from his backside.
Oh, but
there you go.
Well, you're exactly right. I love those kind of,
Yes, sir.
Sometimes we get too caught up in the home runs and all that. But, man, a good defensive backhanded play, Brooks Robinson type play over there at third
now
base.
you're talking there.
I've always loved those.
So that's what's going on in baseball. You got Rogers, Harbor 8-2, a logjam of teams at 5-5. Should be a great last 3 weeks of the season, regular season for the 6A. Oh, sorry, last 2 weeks of the regular season for the 6A West. Going over to soccer, Rick.
Yes.
But when you show up, is it automatic tie? I mean, what's happening over there?
There's more ties than in a men's clothing store.
I
just
heard that.
now made that.
There you go. Yeah.
No, that's what Chip said on his podcast. Go ahead, Henry.
My question is, maybe you need to start wearing a tie over there to the games. Would you pick out a bow tie or would you pick out the necktie?
Well, most people like to see him wear a tie backwards so they could yank it tight.
I guess a bow tie with suspenders. I'm sure I got some of those.
You should
around
do that,
somewhere.
Rick. You could carry that look off. Yes,
I do that.
You could do that.
But now, man, Bentonville and Harbor 3-3 tie after they tied 2-2 a couple weeks ago. I don't even know how to approach a coach after a game like that because, you play to win, but this is a different year because of COVID. I get and they're going to have a conference.
And rules changes.
And rules changes. So, but, yeah, hey, if you can't unsettle a tie in 80 minutes, just go home and try again.
Just go home and
so
try
we've had
again.
a lot of ties. Hey, while we're on soccer, let me mention a couple of things. Rogers Heritage, which has been in second place, tied Springdale High last night on the
Big.
boys' side.
That's big for them.
There's a good.
Yeah.
And here's my favorite soccer story of the year so far is Farmington, for the first time, started a varsity soccer program. They are now in first place after beating Clarksville 1-0
Wow.
on Tuesday night.
That boys, Rick, or girls?
Boys.
Boys, okay.
The boys. Just now starting a soccer program, and they're in first place, 7-1-1 overall, and they beat Clarksville, which has been pretty good in soccer for a few years. So hats off to that program
Cardinals.
over there. Excited for them, yeah.
Yeah, the Cardinals. So that's what's going on in soccer. I was at softball yesterday. Bentonville West hosted Bentonville, and boy, Henry, Bentonville took it to them 11-2. It was a 2-1 game. Bentonville had scored 2 in the first inning, and then one of my favorite players, and I love her name, Ryan Rassey. She belted one to center field, her 8th home run of the season, made it 2-1. You're like, okay, here we're going to have a good one. Then Bentonville hung a 3-spot or a 4-spot up, and I think maybe in the 4th inning, and then basically just took it over. Kinsey Berry hit a 3-run jack and kind of blew the game open. So Bentonville still a half game behind Rogers, but Bentonville's played one more game than the rest of the teams in the conference. They have already played Springdale twice, so they're sitting at 7-1. Rogers is at 7-0. And then Bentonville West is now in 3rd place. They were tied with Bentonville going into that game. Now they're in 3rd place. So some really, really good girls softball. And I was watching yesterday, Henry, as one at a time, the Bentonville girls came up to the plate, and the guy who was announcing, I believe it was Coach Mackey from Bentonville West, said, here's so-and-so. She is signed with Missouri State. Next up is so-and-so. She signed with the UCA. Next up is so-and-so. She signed with Purdue. You know, just all these girls who are going to get to further their careers at the collegiate level. And that's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. That's what this is about.
Yeah. It's softball, okay? These girls, now, if they were playing with wood bats, we'd say they brought their lumber. But
Yeah.
what do you say when it's aluminum bats?
Boy, it was heavy metal for sure.
There it was.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Love to watch these teams play. They're so well coached. We've talked about Kent Early. You talked about what a great job he's done at Bentonville, not just with the softball, but he's got a golf championship, state championship as well. And they're just so fundamental. Anthony Cantrell over at West, Mike Harper at Rogers. I mean, these guys just do such a phenomenal job, coaching these girls. And I love to go, Rick, and watch them take infield. They're crisp. These girls know what to do. They know where to go with the ball, and just love seeing it.
You know what? And you're talking about those 17, 14 games. I saw enough of those on Sundays during college baseball. I mean, when you empty the bullpen and all that out.
That's when Johnny Holstaff pitches for your team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm like Henry. Give me and you see this a lot in softball. 2-1, 5-4.
Yes.
And they're fundamental. And they get up there and they run the bases. They know the game. They're so enthusiastic. How do you say that? Enthusiastic.
Yes, with the chatter from the dugout.
Chatter and then how they run up and down between innings and all that. So between girls volleyball and softball, those are my two of my favorite sports now.
Love it.
And you step down a classification or two. Tomorrow, Harrison and Farmington meet. Both of them are undefeated in 4A1 conference play. Somebody's going to have to fall.
And Henry, I'm glad you brought the 4A1. Of course, Farmington is the kingpin. They've been to the state finals, won, I think, 5 or 6 state championships, something like that, under Coach Randy Osnes, who has already announced that he's stepping down when this season's over with. He's retiring. And, boy, what huge shoes that job is going to be for somebody. Don't know where they're going to go on that one, but, that's – you hate to be the guy to replace the man.
You don't want to follow the legend.
Woo!
No,
So
you don't want to follow the legend.
That's going to be a tough one. But anyway, so they won big yesterday. So that'll be a good one on Thursday. Another team in the 4A1 that's a very good team is Gentry. They quietly kind of fly under the radar a little bit. They are a very, very good team. And P. Ridge is very good. So we talk about the 4A1 in girls basketball and how good it is.
Yes.
Well, I'll give you 4A1 softball, and I'll raise you a little bit on that.
Hey, how about the Harrison girls this year in all sports? They win the basketball championship. They're doing well in soccer, and now softball, they're right there at the top, too. So they got a bunch of ballers up there in the girls at Harrison, don't they?
Great athletes. Great athletes. Henry, you I know you cover track, more than not more. He covers track, and we don't, Rick.
Yeah,
so,
we don't. Yeah.
Henry, what have you seen so far this year in track? I saw the Black Hawk relays were held last week, and they had that. P Ridge boys and girls just, pun intended, they flew away with the team titles. And,
they did. P Ridge, basically because of COVID last year, nothing happened. Technically, they're trying to go for their third straight state championship.
Heather Wade is their
Heather Wade.
Yeah, boy, she was former basketball. You know what, Rick? She was a basketball coach, but I'd put her on my boxing team. I'll take Heather Wade. You take Sarah Pfeiffer. I'm gonna take Heather Wade.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, I'm backing her. Hey, it'd take them.
Pfeiffer's tall, but Heather's going to take her out. She's going to take those knees out.
I've seen Pfeiffer in action. I'm still backing her.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, did the story last Sunday on Blakely Wynn, and she's currently right now the state's best in the long jump at 17:10. I watched her do 17:6 in a brutal win.
Wow.
Thursday at P Ridge.
And Henry, she's going to Pittsburgh State to run track. Is correct? But
looks like she might be a heptathlete.
Okay. And I think she'll do well. That's 10 events?
7 events.
7 events. Okay. That's fantastic.
Well, she did the heptathlon in 2019 in the Arkansas girls and finished third.
So she'll be a strong favorite, I would think, this year for the state heptathlon.
And she'll be gorilla after that, right?
Yeah. She goes from a Black Hawk to a gorilla.
Okay. So that's what's going on in track. Now, we also want to mention, I just got a Twitter message on this week, and I will be the first to admit I don't know that much about gymnastics, but a young man over at Bentonville West named Bo Bice, he's a male gymnast, and from what I got on Twitter, he's the first male gymnast in the state in the past 8 years from this state to qualify for a USA Junior Olympic Nationals berth. That's big, Ricky. Olympics, that's big.
Yeah.
And he's going to be competing in Daytona Beach, Florida in May, so we want to congratulate him on a sport that we don't know that much about. But I'm going to tell you right now, to be a male gymnast, that requires strength that I cannot even imagine, to be able to lift yourself like that on the rings and that kind of thing. It's incredible. So congratulations to him on that.
Yeah, not on the rings, try to do that on the pommel horse. Sit there and watch it, and somebody is going to get severely hurt on one of those things like that.
So I'm like a hobby horse where you have to try to jump over it.
Yeah,
is that what they did?
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I figured. I wasn't very good at that.
I'm going to be doing a story on Bo here in the next week or so, leading into him competing in May in Daytona, Florida. So congratulations to him. Now, the big news today, Henry, you were on this story yesterday. I was at softball over at Bentonville West, and Greg White mentioned it a little bit to me, but I was busy doing softball and video, so I didn't get a chance to visit with him much. But Bentonville West is going to be hosting a magnificent, tremendously big, huge basketball event in January.
Most definitely, and let me get ready for this. Yes, this will come actually in January. It is affiliated with the National Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield. That immediately tells you this isn't pee-wee basketball.
Yeah, this
is going to be very high-quality stuff. And I have to pull this up.
It's just like it's big or maybe bigger than the old King Cotton they used to have in Pine Bluff.
Very, very big. Yeah. What it is, they are going to now set up 4 regional tournaments where by zones. Bentonville, or in this case, Centerton, Bentonville West, will be hosting the Spalding Hoop Hall Classic South Regional. The others are going to be held in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Scottsdale, Arizona, and a place in Delaware. So,
Delaware. They play basketball in Delaware?
Dover.
I guess so.
So that's the only time I know.
They will have 4 regional tournaments, and then I guess you can go from there to the Hoop Hall Classic, which is held January 13th through 17th in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, at the Hall of Fame site.
Hall of Fame.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
now, Greg dropped the name DeMatha High on me yesterday.
Ooh, I know DeMatha.
Yeah, that is the equivalent of having Duke University come and play at your college venue. That would be the equivalent of that. Huge, and I don't know who
40
else.
guys in the NBA from that played at DeMatha.
he did mention them. So I don't know who all is involved in this, but
They don't have all the teams yet.
We know for sure Bentonville and Bentonville West are going to
Bentonville
be
West
there.
will be there. And what's going to happen, if you notice the dates, these are going to be in the middle of
Conference
6A
play.
West Conference play.
Right.
What they're going to do, they have been allowed to switch some things around. Bentonville and Bentonville West will play each other during this classic,
Right.
and it
as
will
their
count
conference
as
game.
their conference
As
game.
their conference game. Now,
So-
what we're also hopeful for, fellas, and people listening, is that, by the time the calendar flips to next November, that we're back to a normal seating capacity in these gyms.
Yes.
They can be packed. No masking. Crazy. Kid student section, stuff like that. This can be. I mean, this will be the biggest high school basketball event we've had in this region. I'm guessing ever. Potentially.
It matches up to a few years ago when Bentonville was having those games with Chaminade out
Yeah,
of St.
and Malik
Louis.
Monk was there,
and,
yeah.
And Bentonville going to the Max Preps tournament in
Right.
California, or they even went one year to Springfield, Massachusetts.
Now, Henry, did they mention? I know we're going to have a story on this in Thursday's edition of the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. But did they mention anything about TV or this get kind of regional exposure or anything like that? Because that's kind of what Greg alluded to yesterday, is that there would be television.
Nothing was mentioned television-wise, but I'm sure in the upcoming days, the people with Spalding and East Bay, who are the big
Wow.
sponsors.
Yeah.
You hear Spalding and East
Bay,
Bay.
yeah, that's
These
huge.
are big companies.
Yeah.
Toward basketball.
Yeah.
And they loved what they saw here, and they think they've got a gym coming here, and
Yeah.
that's the reason they're coming.
Well, that's fantastic. And boy,
Well,
what a
Greg deserved, man. He's a forward-thinking guy. He thinks big like that.
yeah. And what a beautiful venue over at Bentonville West. If you've never been in Wolverine Arena, it is very, very nice. And a
Nice.
great job with it over there. So it'll be a beautiful, beautiful arena. They could seat as many as 2,600, I guess, if that's if they back it in normal times, they can seat that many. So should be great high school basketball. That's coming in January, and we will have a full story on that in Thursday's edition of the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. So lots of good stuff going on. We are winding down. We're here again today, April 14th. So we got about a month left in high school sports in the state, period. I mean, that's what we got left. If you'd told me back, last August 1st, where would we be at this time? Well, let's go back farther, a little farther, Rick. Last year in March, I'll be the first to admit this, I thought of COVID as this is a little bump in the road. We're going to take a 2-week reset. I know the state finals are affected, but I think we'll come back, April 1st, and we'll play the state. No, that did not happen. Not only did it not happen after a couple of weeks like I had hoped that it would, a year later, it still was not back to normal. So, but what you're seeing now is numbers are, because vaccines, you're seeing numbers down and manageable. Everything is manageable. Of course, you can't let your guard down.
No.
You're like a fighter. You're like Ali. Right now we've rope-a-doped. Corona a little bit. We've rope-a-doped, but he's still there.
He's still there.
He's still there. And so do your due diligence. And we've mentioned this. We hadn't mentioned it in a while, but you got to keep. What you got to remember is, don't do this for you. Do it for the people around you and for these kids. If you don't do nothing else, just do it for the kids.
You know what? And I would have given it maybe a 25% chance, starting with football, I guess volleyball in August, that we'd get through the whole season without. I mean, we've had a lot of hills and valleys
Right.
and everything.
Right.
I mean, once we get past that last game in the spring, I don't know if it's spring football or the championships up here. I mean, that's just time to exhale, and
Yeah.
be thankful that
Yep.
we got through this, one of the worst years ever.
Exactly. So what I'm looking forward to, Henry, we also need to mention, I don't think we've mentioned this on the podcast, that the state championship games, which normally are played in Fayetteville at the U of A, will not be played there this spring.
No.
The state championship baseball games and softball games will be moved to Benton. They'll be played there, and I'm not exactly sure where soccer
Benton High School as well.
hosting that as
yes.
well.
Oh.
And then the state track and field meets are, of course, at different venues, but the 6A state track and field meet will be here at Rogers Heritage.
That's correct.
So we got that here. 6A state's baseball tournament will be played in Fort Smith at 2 different venues. 6A state soccer, now we're talking the state tournament, not the finals. The 6A soccer will be held at both Harbor and Springdale High.
Mm-hmm.
Softball will be down in the central part of the state, down, I believe, in Bryant or someplace down there, maybe Cabot, I believe.
Cabot got softball.
Yep, and so different places. But the state finals, normally baseball played at Baum Stadium, softball played at Bogle Park, soccer played at Razorback Field. Those will not be played there this May. They'll be played in Benton, down in the Little Rock area.
And why aren't they doing it here? Is COVID related?
It is. It's somewhat COVID related. Fayetteville is still, cautious about that, and so they felt more comfortable.
Okay.
And doing that, and Benton stepped up to the plate and said, "We'll host." They got great facilities there, and they're going to host it. So
Yeah, if you remember, just a few years back, it was a case where Arkansas softball team got a regional here, and they had to move these softball state championships
They
in
did.
high school. Where did they go? They went to Benton.
Yes.
And that is a very nice facility.
Yes,
I
it
was
is.
Okay.
I had to go watch the 6A game when Bentonville played Bentonville West. I also watched the 4A game again. I think it was Farmington and Bologna. And I like the facilities.
yeah, beautiful.
So we're sending you there again this year?
Well, I'm
Yet to
covering,
be determined.
I'm covering softball, so it may be me. So anyway, that's what's going on. That's all I know of going on in the world of sports. Unless you guys have anything
I don't
else.
know anything.
So we got some spring football that'll be coming up. Some schools have already started their spring practices. I know Graham Thomas with our paper over in Siloam Springs said Siloam was started its spring football this week, I believe. And then I cannot wait, Ricky. 7-on-7s will be coming in June and July. I love the 7-on-7s and because we kind of take a little bit of a breath after state softball and soccer and all that ends. You kind of get about a 2 or 3 weeks where you kind of can sit back and kind of recharge a little bit.
Yep.
And then 7-on-7 comes in. I love to go connect with the coaches and that kind of thing there. So I'll be happy to see that come in the summer for sure.
Especially that Shiloh
Yes.
Christian event where a team, about 30 teams from about
Yeah.
4-state area.
Yep.
And that's when you really get pumped up for football.
Exactly. So that is it for this week's show. I want to thank Henry Apple and Rick Fires for joining me today on this, and we will be back next week to talk more spring sports as we move toward the finish line for the 2021 school year for high school sports. It's hard to believe.
Yep. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Do your thing.
Yep.
Do what you do, and
Don't mess it up now.
and do it for them.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being with us, and we'll catch you next time on Prep Rally, the podcast.
The Prep Rally Podcast is produced and directed by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.